has been a little bit. I took a lovely break after Youtober, but I figured let's dive back into it with a lot of you requested an updated tattoo tour, as I've gotten quite a few, and the last one I filmed was one back when I lived in Arizona and two before I had this lovely camera, so the quality was quite a bit different. So I'm just gonna kind of walk through all my tattoos and see. I do not consider myself a heavily tattooed person. What I would consider heavily tattooed as in to the point where there's no way to cover up, right? If that's you, you do you. I like having the ability to go incognito. In total, I have 7 tattoos. Kind of 8-ish, as there was a cover-up one, and when I get to that one I'll describe what's going on with that. But the first tattoo I ever got, we'll just go in chronological order, make it simple, is the in Armenian behind my ear is my great-grandfather's name. Now, from what I've understood, the spelling is a little bit suspect because sometimes it's spelled with an H versus sometimes it's spelled with a K. He survived the Armenian genocide, and I don't know, his story of his going through like a concentration camp situation, escaping, being separated from his family, kind of finding his family again, having to escape from Armenia to Turkey, eventually getting to Iraq, and then having to leave Iraq and come to America to also escape more dictators and craziness, is something that has kind of been passed down through a grandfather as he's learned about the trials his father went through, and then down to like my mother and then to me. And it's just something where whenever I think of my life being too difficult or too hard or too, I don't know, I always like try to think of everything that he went through and everything that he sacrificed. So having that kind of reminder always behind my ear as a man who literally did everything so that I could have a better life in such huge significant way is one of the reasons that was my first ever tattoo. My second tattoo is, and then we'll go right to the cover-up situation, is I got a Ganesh on my ankle. Now, I didn't end up getting a Ganesh for very long because this is what I consider the quote-unquote epitome of, I guess, cultural appropriation, spiritual appropriation in a tattoo form. I'm not one of those people who thinks that like this faith has to remain with these people, period, because that was theirs, even though there was a horrible history with colonization and all that crap. I do think that faith is a very hard thing, especially spirituality is a very hard thing to just be like, no, it's just for you. Like, a lot of people can find a lot of solace in whatever if you are committed in researching and fully into a faith. I didn't do that. I decided at 19 that I was like, oh, well, I'm going to be spiritual and all into all this stuff. It was, I guess, the start of quote-unquote my personal spiritual journey. I was just starting to get into like meditation and visualization. I was learning about the chakras. I was learning about some of this stuff. And I found out about Ganesh and was kind of like, I'm just gonna get it tattooed on my ankle. Very quickly though, that fascination kind of ran its course as I started finishing up college and then started studying abroad, and basically I did not fully commit. I didn't really know what I was looking into. I was just like, yeah, sure, that deity seems cool, slap it on my ankle. And that's just not the way you go about it. And it's one of those things where when it comes to tattoos, if someone ever asks me about something, I like to look at it, at a tattoo, whether it's in the mirror, in a photo, whatever, and like feel proud that it's on my body. And it's one of those things where like I look at it and it should at least at minimum make me chuckle or like bring a little smile to my face. And every time I looked at the Ganesh, I was always just like, God, I am just one of the people that just jumped on that bag when it hopped right off. Like I was that person that shallowly looked at something. It was like, that's mine now. Like, so it always rubbed me the wrong way. So eventually I decided, you know what, screw this. I'm tired of always seeing it there. I'm tired of feeling anxiety of if someone did follow that faith and saw that and being like, oh, you're of me. And I'm like, no, I'm not Hindu. I don't really even know that much about Ganesh's myth, which is, you know, at the time, I eventually looked into it a little bit more, but overall it was just, it really just brought me a whole bunch of like, you did it for stupid reasons, so you should fix it. So I got my black cat, black work covered over. I didn't have to get as much black work at the time, and now looking back, I guess of all the tattoos of regrets, I regretted getting the Ganesh for stupid reasons, but I regret the style that I got the black cat in. I don't mind it. I still really appreciate the tattoo. I see it and it's very it always just brings a giggle to my face now because it reminds me of my cat Boo Boo, and then also just brings a little joy to myself. It's very playful. But the all black work, ooh, it hurt like hell on the bone specifically, and it was a bitch to heal. It took way longer than any other tattoo I've had to heal. I'm just assuming because it's like where socks are rubbing. It was a bitch and a half to get that one all the way to, and to this day it's still like a really dry tattoo. It's just and if I had gotten, I think, not as much black work done, it would have been a lot chiller if I had done some like more shading or a better design or something. But you live and you learn. The next tattoo that I got is the one on my side, which is a quote. Originally I heard it from Once Upon a Time. The Mad Hatter character on there said the quote, "Everyone wants a magical solution to their problems, yet everyone refuses to believe in magic." At the time, again, it was about a year after I had started kind of dabbling into spirituality and different things, and my mom was saying things to me about meditation and visualization and manifestation, all the words. And I realized so much of what had really bothered me about what I was going through is that I just didn't believe in fucking anything. I was like, I didn't have any sort of idea what my beliefs were, and I didn't even believe that my doubt was okay. And I realized that if I wanted to change my life, I had to believe first it was possible. I had to believe that, hey, maybe what is set out for me currently doesn't have to be this way. Maybe I can shift it. And that quote always stood out to me. And less of the magic solutions and refusing to believe in magic, it just, for me at the time, it was the solutions. Later the magic would be a big part of it, but the idea of you have these problems but you don't believe in the solutions for the problems, that you just keep complaining about the problems. So, and now it's like, oh hey, if I want to enact something in my life, if I want a quote-unquote miracle to happen, well then I have to believe in miracles in the first place for that to come about. So it's always been a great reminder since then. The next tattoo that I got was my Triquetra on my back. Now this one is probably the symbol that means the most to me besides the pentacle pentagram. At the time, this is the one that meant the most to me, just the balance and the never-ending knot. And in my mind, I always had the idea too of, I used to have weird dreams of that symbol being there and rotating when I lived out in California. Wasn't a witch back then, but I liked the idea of this thing being so balanced, being so delicate and yet so firm. I still have that little pendant that I wear quite frequently on my person all the time, and I really just wanted it on my back as a constant reminder of balance with a bunch of the little drapery things around it. It was a style I had seen in a lot of other people getting tattooed on Instagram and stuff, the idea of these delicate things kind of hanging off of it. It's one of those things that, like, probably the first time I had a symbol put on me in the sense of I wanted to embody in my life, and that was the start of me using getting tattooed as being a ritualistic mindset, because I had a very distinct visualization of me going back to that dream of that of the Triquetra being there, but just like all the stuff, kind of like the knot moving and rotating as it went. And I visualized that almost the entirety of me getting tattooed, which was several hours for this one. And it was definitely something where I was like, ooh, I feel tingles, I feel something weird here. But at the time, I wasn't a witch, and so I didn't quite put two and two together. The next tattoo that I got is the one on the back of my right arm. I got that one done near the end of my experience in Arizona, and I realized that there are certain things I think in life that you kind of find and hold on to as your grounding points. These are the things that, like, if as long as I have this thing, then it'll be okay. You know, it's like your last little, like, fuck, I just really need that little thing. Maybe it's for you a hug from someone you love, or watching your favorite TV show, a favorite whatever. For me, it has always been sitting there and listening to the rain and a cup of coffee are my two kind of triggers to take a breath, take a moment, really ground and be in the moment and remember that it's all going to be okay. And combining the two, specifically because being in Arizona, one of the things I missed so much was rain. I missed cloudy days, I missed storms, I missed that type, and that would always come around monsoon season where there'd be these torrential downpours. So I finally found a tattoo. This is also the first tattoo artist that I heavily researched. All up until this time, all the tattoos were just like, I googled nearest tattoo shop to my location, looked up some of the reviews, and then just walked in and said, which artist is available, tattoo me. Like same day walk-in situation. So the coffee cup on the back of my arm, I got it in Phoenix, Arizona by Honest Bob. I will put his handle, the handles for the people that I know, I'll put down below, but he was really freaking awesome. I loved his style, and this is actually the tattoo that healed the quickest for me too, and I think it has something to do with like the style of the tattoo, along with just its placement on my body too, like it being on my arm, first arm tattoo that I had gotten. I love this tattoo so much just because it really was, every time I saw it, it had the same feeling and the same kind of like, I don't know, grounding effect as hearing the rain or being in the rain or having that cup of coffee in the morning or throughout my day. Every time I even get a glance of it, it was that same grounding of, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And it's funny how this I'd gotten probably a little bit into my journey as a witch, but it was one of those things where I walked in and again, I had realized I just kind of kept remembering grounding and these two things coming together to be my two like pillars of grounding and keep centered. And oh, it was just, I didn't realize it was a ritual, even though it basically kind of was, like going into it and having all the blood and everything else. It was one of those things that afterwards I reflected on it, and I think that was the first time I was like, oh, this could be a whole like magical thing. This could have a great, awesome magical context. And I realized that as I cataloged all my tattoos, even though it seems like a coffee cup, a cat, a quote, a last name, all of these kind of had some sort of magical leaning. The last name on the back of my ear is Ancestor Magic. Probably one of the few pieces of Ancestor Magic I actually do. The cat is a little bit of the inner child. One of the reasons that rubbed me the wrong way about the Ganesh tattoo, and I had to get the cat over it, was because it was magic that I didn't feel connected to. It was me tapping into a deity that just didn't jive with me, right? This quote on my side is believing in magic. The Triquetra is balance on me at all times. This is grounding, even when it's like holding on to those two things needed. And I finally put together at the end of that tattoo, oh, these have really deep spiritual meaning for me. And so that's when I realized, okay, from now on, all the tattoos I'm going to get, it's not just the tattoo that is going to be meaningful and something I really want, it's also going to be the process of getting tattooed. I'm going to consciously make it a magical ritual. So then we move on to, I'm finally in Portland with the lovely Bex Flom. Bex is the one that did my Persephone tattoo. And this is the first one I kind of went into as like, this is a dedication tattoo to Persephone. I knew the art I really wanted. I love the style of this particular tattoo artist so much, and ooh, it was just going in there and kind of like having the whole moment. And I did a whole like kind of like unveiling ritual when I finally took the bandages off after it was done at my altar to Persephone. And it was just one of those things that for me, this tattoo was probably the most deeply ingrained spiritually, because it had a whole element of a proper dedication to Persephone. In my dedicating to my matron video, how I found Persephone, there's that video, and then there's also the video I said about the actual ritual, what I did as a dedication ritual to her, because it was also my dedication as the witch. I kind of said it was like the inner room. It was the first step on my journey with Persephone, and it was very kind of loose with the dedication, right? Like I gave myself an out of being like, this might work, this might not. And to this day, I still think I don't have to be connected to Persephone for the entirety of my life if I don't want to. But for this, for me, is I am making a long-term commitment to you. This is not just a, hey, you helped me out, great, for as long as it's beneficial to us. The flowers growing out of the skull, the idea of the smoke around it being like kind of that mysterious part of creation that we can't understand. That is the element of Persephone that really drives home for me the type of power, this idea of this unknowable essence behind the idea of that transition. We don't know how those transitions really come about. Why does from life to death, why does death have to occur? From how does life get born? We don't really know the mysticals behind it. And for me, I feel like Persephone is that, she is that knowledgeable one. She's that one that connects it, right? She brings it forth and all that. So that is that tattoo. And then my most latest tattoo, which I got as part of my Samhain ritual this year, is my Wheel of Fortune tattoo. Now, I didn't just want to get the tarot card, the standard Wheel of Fortune. I wanted to mix the Wheel of Fortune in with the concept of the Wheel of the Year, and really kind of bringing in that concept of someone being in the middle, and you don't have any control over the fact that the wheel is spinning, the wheel of fortune, of fate, of what have you, the Wheel of the Year. Like, we're kind of just caught in this cyclone of things constantly changing and moving, and maybe it'll bring beneficial, maybe it'll bring us fruits and amazingness, or maybe it will be a season of transformation, of death, of destruction for us. All of that stuff kind of all comes about. So originally I kind of felt like the Wheel of Fortune tattoo was more of the embodiment of Loki, and I kept thinking like, oh, I got a Persephone tattoo, I should maybe get a Loki tattoo and then a Sobek tattoo one day. But ultimately when it comes to Loki, I just it almost feels like there is no symbol that can truly embody anything that I can really think of. He is such a shapeshifter when I deal with him, and while Persephone has like the pomegranate, skulls, flowers, there's so many things where I'm like, that's, and like with Sobek, crocodile. Like, I don't have to necessarily, with the other two, think of like, what in the hell would embody you or embody a part of you that I really connect with. With Loki, I'm like, that change, Wheel of Fortune kind-ish maybe, and he's just like, but because everything is always shifting and changing with him in general, right? So originally it started as that, and then eventually I realized it had nothing to do so much with Loki as it is kind of the thing, again, that I kind of rely on. The same thing with the coffee and rain tattoo, and then my Triquetra tattoo on the back is the Wheel of Fortune is more of something that I want embodied in my life. I like the concept that if nothing else is constant other than change, then change is a constant. Things are going to keep shifting and moving and evolving and hopefully leveling up in your life. And knowing that, and instead of trying to fight it but lean into it, be accepting of the fact that you're in the constant cycle of everything and maybe in the middle of it or thrown around with it, and just kind of like take it on into your life and know that you are strong enough to go through the changes and to survive what the wheel has in store for you, I think really became what I wanted it to embody. And it's interesting how I went and got this tattoo, and I didn't see the work beforehand, so I didn't exactly know how this was going to end up looking until the day I got it. I had already planned to go onto a walk on Samhain through the woods, but I definitely wanted to then, and when I went, all the leaves had been drastically, like, had just started to change, and they were all falling, and it was just felt like the wood, like, oh, my walk was just, it was so great, because it just felt so homey and comforting, and being like in the midst of a cycle, in the middle of this huge shift and change, it felt so at home for me. And so just, ooh, way was the grounding thing again, a feeling of just being like centered and full and powerful, because it was in the middle of shifts. Knowing that you can, I think, stand and stay strong even if the world is crazily going around you, is probably one of the most powerful feelings I've ever really felt. And I felt wholly connected to all the trees and the leaves around me and the air and the sun kind of barely glinting through. It just is an extremely meaningful moment to me on Samhain, and knowing that I had this underneath it, it felt more of like me connecting to the universe as a whole and my primordial beginning, the idea of that like pillar in the middle of the cycle, you know, the wheel needs something to turn around. Maybe for me in my life, that is what the wheel is turning around, is me, right? If I'm the centerpiece, around it goes. And anyway, that is all of my tattoos, my little tattoo tour. I probably will get quite a few more. I'm still debating on whether or not I'm going to get a a pentacle or pentagram tattoo, hopefully someday. And there's definitely, well, with Loki, I kind of feel almost like he's been like, there's no tattoo to get. Like, I almost don't want any tattoo unless they can make one that can shift on your skin or something in the future. Then that would be very Loki-esque. But I do have minor plans for a possible crocodile tattoo, and also minor plans for a pentacle tattoo, maybe someday. So we shall see with those. And anyway, I make new videos again every single week. It has been a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Comment down below if there's any sort of spiritual tattoo or even just fun tattoo that you love to get that kind of relates with your spirituality, your paganism, your witchiness. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.